We have officially made it into the last quarter of the year in what tends to be a very strong 3 months from crypto. And already crypto markets are off to the races, starting the day out extremely strong in what many analysts and crypto investors are calling October. Now, as you can see in previous bull market cycles like that of 2020, we put in some range highs and we're actually ranging for quite some time here from the months of essentially May all the way into September. Then on October 1st, right around here, we saw virtually no price action to the upside whatsoever. Again, just more ranging. And then in the end of October, on the 21st, we broke above a range resistance right here, which led us to a mega rally for new all-time highs on Bitcoin. As you can see, the little circle is right here, and the all-time high came in somewhere over here in April. At least from an on-chain analytics point, this was that high. In similar fashion, we had March of 2023, putting in new local highs, but then we cooled off for quite some time, all the way from March into mid to late October. Virtually no price action through the start of October, and then right here on October 23rd, we rallied for some new local highs above our prior range highs at 32,000, which carried us all the way up to $73,000. And since that point in time, we've been up a whopping 250 plus %. Now, in typical fashion, crypto tends to follow Bitcoin. Bitcoin puts in its all-time high sometime mid to late December, and the rest of the crypto market or altcoins see rotations of that capital and those gains from Bitcoin into every single individual altcoin. Usually the strongest performers continue to outperform the rest of the market. So cryptos like XRP, who tend to have a personality where when they break out above prior range highs like it did back in November, rallies extremely hard before cooling off for quite some time. And we saw that cooling off during those very boring years of 2022 all the way into 2024 because we weren't out of the woods just yet when it came to the Ripple lawsuit with the SEC. Well, now Ripple is doing something very similar. We've been range bound for quite some time, but when this thing explodes, it looks like it goes parabolic. And I'm thoroughly expecting new all-time highs sometime between November, December, and potentially even into the start of next year. But what leads me to believe that this is going to be a crazy blow off top is because in typical fashion, Bitcoin in most bull market scenarios just kind of ranges down here during the start to mid-October and doesn't actually start to rally like it is currently for local range highs, currently sitting at $118,000 above our prior high, which leads me to believe we're definitely going up to 120 within the next probably couple days. And a breakout in early October is a sign of unusual strength, which means we're likely going to see rallies that are going to catch everyone off guard. Most people might be expecting conservative gains when in reality we see some crazy gains. So in this video, I'll be covering what to look out for this October to prep for that end of the year rally, which usually melts faces. I'll be covering the recent government shutdown and also what to expect on that front, which could definitely hammer markets for a little while or cause unnecessary volatility, which if you're using any leverage whatsoever will get you wrecked. I'll be covering the latest statement from Congress talking about how they want to remove capital gains taxes on Bitcoin, which in my opinion, if this occurred, would create for a catalyst well outside of its typical 4-year trajectory and could push the rest of the altcoin market like XRP to potential 2 to 3 times its prior all-time high because so much capital would flow into a crypto market where there literally are no capital gains taxes when Bitcoin is used. And finally, I'll be covering what I did not too long ago when it came to Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, inviting 800 generals from all around the globe into one central location, which truly was unprecedented in what he had to share with them there, which at first led markets to sell off in fear that something crazy was going to happen on a global scale. And finally, if you're looking to take advantage of a tax advantaged account where you can invest in all sorts of different crypto cryptos through an IRA or a Roth IRA, yes, you can roll your current IRA over into iTrust Capital. Then go ahead and check that link out in our description below at itrustcapital.com/bullrunners. And you can invest in any one of these cryptos listed down below, and there are so many, and arguably names you simply cannot access anywhere else through these IRA accounts. Not only can you access your majors, but you can also access things like HBAR, Uniswap, World Liberty Financial, Aave, major AI companies and tokens like BitTensor, or real-world assets, companies like Ondo, and the list goes on. They're currently adding, and they're always adding, new cryptos for you to access through those retirement accounts. Now, what makes these guys so great is that there's literally only a 1% trading fee. There are no monthly fees, yearly fees. Their customer support team is based in the United States, and they're non-commissioned, which means there's no pressure to do anything else. You can completely self-manage your IRA account. So when you click on that link and you decide to get started or roll your account over, be sure to use the promo code BULLRUN9 in order to claim a $100 funding bonus before it disappears. And without further ado, my friend, as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the Bull Runners channel. If you're new here, my name is Paul. You can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDefi, PauliDefi. Now, the first thing I want to cover, which actually turned out to be a bit of a nothing burger when it came to market volatility, it caused a bit in the early announcement, but then after the meeting happened, it ended up being Peter Hegseth, Secretary of War, telling the entire military full of generals what his expectations were moving forward, and it was actually pretty cool. Let's have a listen.
To remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department. To rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit.
That said, one of the current headwinds that the markets are going to face is how long this shutdown actually is going to last. Under the first Trump administration back in 2018, it lasted for over 30 days and the longest time in history. And it might be the case this time around too, considering it might be a strategic move from Trump to actually lay off or furlough tons of government employees, as hundreds of thousands of federal workers are being put on furlough, and the White House said layoff announcements would be made soon. That said, Russell Vought, who is the budget director over at the White House, stated layoffs across federal agencies will begin later this week, and he didn't give an indication on how many cuts there will be, but one House Republican said he indicated it would be consequential. So yes, this could be a major dent in the US economy if it lasts for too long. But that said, just want to read some stats that the Kobisi letter put out, and that's the fact that the average length of a shutdown is actually only 8 days. So we'll see this time around if it lasts for more than 8 days, and if it does, that is going to affect the price action on many cryptos, considering it's going to affect the S&P 500. Both are treated as risk on asset classes. The S&P 500, however, has ended higher 1 year after a shutdown in 86% of cases. In other words, this is just a blip in a larger trend. So whether or not we experience a later move in the market sometime later the month, or the shutdown only lasts a very short period of time, we'll find out soon. But at the end of the day, this shouldn't affect the overall trend. The S&P 500 posts an average gain of 13% 1 year after the shutdown ends, which is actually just your average, right? Between 9 to 12%, and any good market year, 20%, which is absolutely insane. During the 35-day shutdown in 2018, the S&P 500 still rallied 11%. While the government is shut down, the U.S. defers $400 million per day in costs, which is a huge saving per taxpayer. And one may wonder, how long can we remain shut down and save ourselves some taxpayer dollars without hurting the economy? But I get a lot of these U.S. contractors or employees are good people and they have bills to pay as well. The Fed generally turns more dovish if government data releases are paused. In other words, the Fed might actually lower interest rates this upcoming meeting by 25 basis points. And historically, the market actually welcomes shutdowns. I don't know why that is, but that's just how things are, and the data shows it, which means things are looking really good for October considering the recent price action. Now let's dive into this video where they cover removing capital gains taxes on Bitcoin for everyday payments inside of Congress, because if this happened, this would be one of the most bullish situations we've ever seen in crypto market history.
Mr. Zlaykin, do you have anything in particular that you think would do harm if we would put something in legislation?
Thank you, Senator. I think that my theme is that there's a lot of potential for over-reporting. We spend a lot of time on that, even in this discussion about de minimis and with stablecoins itself. There's an enormous potential. This is a democratized form of financial asset class where people can use things in ways that weren't done before. And there's a tremendous potential there for over-reporting and burdening the system. It's burdening the system for taxpayers, and it's burdening the system for the IRS. So let's take reporting today, and if you enhance this by over-reporting, by not including a de minimis rule, you're going to have billions of transactions that taxpayers are going to have to report, keep track of. I don't think most taxpayers are prepared for that result. It'll probably hinder the growth of the industry. It will also
When you talk about reporting, again, I want to always keep things as simple as possible. The whole blockchain is based on pretty complex computers, which we have now. So hopefully we could be able to use something like that.
Now that said, let's dive into this quick article, then the price action, and give you my take on what to look out for next in terms of pivot points, buy areas, or what I like to call buy zones. So whether or not you're actually already in the market and looking to add to your position, or you have yet to enter the market and you want to make your first buy into the end of the year, things are looking pretty good. Considering the stablecoin SSR RSI signals a buy. Now, an SSR is a stablecoin supply ratio, which means that this metric is showing we are at a major low where there are tons of stable coins sitting on the sidelines ready to enter the market. The fact that long-term Bitcoin holders have accumulated over 300,000 Bitcoin. And again, when Bitcoin is doing well, it creates for a market environment where the rest of the cryptos can do well, and that would include XRP. And finally, Bitcoin's green September close historically precedes Q4 rallies, averaging 78% plus gains for Bitcoin, which tends to lead to greater gains or higher than 78% for the majority of cryptos. But right here, you can see that the stablecoin metric points to the fact that we are oversold in terms of the RSI, which means tons of stablecoins are sitting on the sidelines ready to be tossed at the market. That includes the fact that all of the Bitcoin that has consistently been being bought, probably through ETF issuers, is being ripped off exchanges and put in private custodial wallets, which tends to lead to a supply crunch, where if the supply continues to get lower and lower and lower, and even if the demand remains the same, the price of Bitcoin will go up. But I've never really seen that. More often than not, we see major or mass FOMO when the price continues to climb and there's less Bitcoin available on exchanges. So we see a decline in supply and a severe increase in demand, which causes for sky-high prices. And even directly from the Cointelegraph, several on-chain and technical indicators suggest that last week's drop to 108,000 might have marked the local bottom for Bitcoin. Again, if this is the local bottom for Bitcoin, and as you've seen over and over and over again on the charts that I share, the entire crypto market is highly correlated, at least the majors. Most of the major market cap cryptos like Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP, even Solana, although they have their own personalities, some pump harder than others, some dump harder than others. At the end of the day, when the whole market is up, usually your favorite crypto, your XRP, is also up. And historically, September has delivered the lowest monthly returns for Bitcoin, which now averages negative 3% across 13 years. However, Tuesday's close above 114,000 marked a rare bullish end to September. Matter of fact, we've seen an extremely bullish summer starting in mid to late June all the way into August, usually months where we just see the market range sideways for quite some time, which leads me to believe we are seeing some unusual strength in the markets, which is why I think we're going to rally extremely hard and see some gains that nobody thought was actually possible. possible. So if my target for Bitcoin this bull market cycle was something like, I don't know, 175,000, I might actually raise that target now to 250,000. And on an XRP, if my target was like $5-6, it might look more like $8, $9, even $10, $11. So taking one look at the S&P 500, every single dip that has happened has been bought up, and we're seeing one of the most resilient and strong markets we've ever seen in history. As you can see that every single time there is a dip, there's a very long, strong wick on the downside, which means dip buyers are active both here and here again in August, early September, mid-September, September 25th, and now we just printed a new all-time high yet again. And that's in the face of this government shutdown. So taking one look at Bitcoin, and then we're going to look at the chart of XRP, you can see that the dips both in late August and late September were bought right up at about $108,000. Now Bitcoin has been rallying really hard and broke for a new range high right here at $117,000, which seemed to be a range support, which then became a resistance late in August and then late September. And it looks like we're seeing a slight amount of resistance right here at about 119.5, which marks our next resistance going all the way back to the July highs. But this is still a textbook uptrend for a series of higher highs and higher lows, and I expect us to continue to put in higher highs, which again will carry over into the rest of the market. Not only are futures data pointing to that, but so are on-chain analytics and even a lot of technical indicators, including the 10 and 20 EMA crossover where price crossed above this range, and we are now back above a range resistance. Now, from the 4-hour perspective, you can see that we were seeing a huge decline in volume where volume was below average or a contraction, and now we're starting to see an expansion in volume to the upside where buyers are in control. This is a very good indicator that into new all-time high territory, if we see a major expansion in volume, arguably back above $120,000, things are going to be really good for the entire crypto market. Now, in terms of XRP is currently sitting at almost $3 yet again, and this seems to be our current resistance to beat. And if we beat that resistance, our next major resistance is going to be about $3.12. But in a good market environment where Bitcoin is making new highs, XRP should follow and break above this descending wedge or triangle, which will not only take us up to our prior all-time highs of 366, but will likely take us to new all-time highs, where my first psychological resistance that I will be watching very closely are probably those even numbers that everyone's looking out for, the $4 range and the $5 range. But because I know the character of an XRP, whenever we break above a range resistance like we did here, XRP tends to rally really hard, even though we're in later stages. Again, we're seeing unusual strength in the crypto market and in the stock market. So realistically, if we get back up to 335, I could see us easily putting in at least another 50% gain up to the $5 range. And that would be my very first major target. And that is it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also head on over to altcoinpro.com to check out our community where we have 1,000 members consistently paying to be here because the alpha and the value are bar none the best in the game. And if you don't agree, go ahead and ask for a refund in 14 days. Get your money back. But I can assure you, education is top tier. The tools and resources are top tier. Our pros and experts are top tier, as well as our community. So check out altcoinpro.com, and I will see you in the next video, my friend. Goodbye.